Welcome to Fundraising with NGP VAN Payments. I'm Shannon Turner, a senior software engineer for ActionKit. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's agenda, we will be creating an account. We'll be going through all of the steps necessary for that. Then we're going to move on to customization and A/B testing options, looking at our new donation data that's available, as well as what's on the payments roadmap and your styling and branding. So in case you're wondering about what's the fuss with our new donation pages, we're going to spend just a couple of minutes talking briefly about what's new. ActionKit's new donation pages are optimized to drive conversions and help you raise the most money possible for your organizations. And we think that our processing rates are pretty competitive too, at 3.25%. And perhaps best of all, this takes advantage of Stripe's network of 200 million saved credit cards. And we think these pages look pretty nice too, allowing full screen images, beautiful responsive design, so your page loads fast and beautiful whether you're on desktop, mobile, or tablet. These pages also integrate seamlessly with Apple Pay, Google Pay, and PayPal, so your users can donate in just a few clicks, or they can save their credit card for faster donation next time around. We also try to pre-fill all of the fields that are possible, and these pages, they look fast, they load fast, they look great, and there's tons of payment method options available. They're super easy to customize. And we've also been hard at work making big improvements with each release. So there are lots of advanced options that you can use to try to optimize your conversions and raise the most funds possible. And all of that hard work we think has been paying off because we've seen huge growth in our conversion rates and our dollars raised, especially for prospects, these non-donors. We would love if you would give our new donation pages a try and let the results speak for themselves. So next we're going to go into how to create a payments account. And I want to quickly show you all of the fields that you'll need in order to set up and create your payment processor account with Stripe that you'll need in order to process donations. You may have done this previously for payment processors such as Braintree or Authorize.net or even ActBlue, for example. You're going to enter in basically the same fields, but this time you'll do it all within ActionKit. Some of the questions that you may be asked may seem like sensitive financial information. Your executive director or other business representative will have to provide the last four of their social security number, for example. But remember, the reason why these questions are being asked is because you're taking people's money and putting it into your organization's bank account. So I want to quickly show you all of the fields now so that you know what information you'll need to get, who you need to get involved, all of that in order to successfully create your account. And remember, you can pause this at any time and rewind and go back and see what fields you need. So there won't be any surprises when you go to create your account. Let's start by going on the Pages tab, go to Donations, and then go to NGP VAN Payments. In this example screenshot, I already have an existing account, but let's go ahead and create another one by clicking New Account up top. You'll see this nice little modal window pop up with a reminder of what questions you're going to get and a reminder to get your organization's representative ready to answer a few questions. They may want to have their own ActionKit login here as well so they can complete the form. First up is the business details section, starting with the legal name of your organization. You'll include your operating name if it's different, plus your employer identification number. Next up is your business address, which says to use the physical location, and it offers a link for clarification in case you have any other questions. Next up is your phone number for your business and your industry, and I'm going to show a few common options from the industry menu on the next few slides. This industry box has a type to search field, as well as many different sub-menus where you can find the best fit description for your organization. And most groups here probably will fall under one of the options under membership organizations, such as civic, fraternal, or social organizations, maybe political, or other membership organizations. Finally, on this screen is your organization's website. And after clicking continue, we land on the next page, which is the business representative. Notice this highlighted section because if at any time you want to go back, you can click this and choose which screen you want to return to. So for instance, if you wanted to change the business website, then you could do that here. Now this verify your personal details page, this is going to ask for the last 4 digits of the social security number of the representative of your organization who is authorized to sign. So if that's not you, no problem. Get someone in your organization who is that person, and if they have an ActionKit login, go ahead and send them this screen so that they can continue, or create an ActionKit staff login for them and then send them this page. Let's assume that you're not the business representative, so you're going to hand off completing this screen at this point. So after all, you just completed the first screen with all of the business details, but you don't want to ask your executive director for the birthday and last 4 of their social security number, for instance. They can log into ActionKit with their own staff account, go to the Pages tab just like you did, come to this payment screen, and then click Finish Account Setup. Don't worry about what this account name is called just now, because that will change once you're finished setting this up. And just as though it was them filling this out all along, they can complete the form. It'll resume exactly where you left off, which was the business representative section. It's going to ask for their legal name, not the organization's name, but their personal legal first and last name. It'll also ask for their job title and date of birth, their home address, and then we round it out with their phone number and the last 4 digits of their social security number. There's also an option to provide a different government ID number instead, here in green. Once they've finished with that, they can click continue. The next screen after clicking continue will take you to the review and submit page. It's always a good idea to double check this and make sure it looks right. This section for the statement descriptor is really important, so I want to take some extra time with this. This statement descriptor is what donors will see on their credit card statement when they're wondering what this charge is for. And it's really important to make sure that this accurately reflects who the donor is giving to. Otherwise, you risk additional disputes. This is like the payment equivalent of a spam complaint if a spam complaint directly costs you money. Disputes can be really expensive and you want to avoid these, so take the time to get this right. Notice that this section here says verified in the upper left, so unless I see any sections that say that they're pending, I'm good to click agree and submit once I've confirmed that all of my information has been filled out completely and correctly. Clicking agree and submit takes me to this thank you page where I can then enter in my banking details once I click this button. And if you don't have these yet, don't worry, you can come back to them later, but we can't give you your money without it, so you probably want to add that now. After clicking next, we're taken to another screen. Up top, we'll name our payment account. This is what you see in the ActionKit admin, like in drop-down menus for donation pages. Finally, you'll get to enter your bank account number, your routing number, and your account holder name, and then you'll click Save. And at this time, payments accounts are only available in the United States and in US dollars. Now my account is fully set up and I'm ready to use it. But before we go on, if your organization requires users to enter their employer and occupation, then you'll want to go ahead and click Toggle Compliance Fields in order to make sure this little button has a green check mark, and then we will ask for those when a user makes a donation. Now that we've done all of that, we probably won't have to do it ever again unless you need another account, or maybe you have different entities like a 501c3 and a 501c4 and a PAC. Now you can just choose the payment account from the drop-down menu on the Action Basics screen of your donation page, just like you're used to. Now, this is important enough that it's worth mentioning on its own slide. In order to use the new payments system, you need to use an NGP VAN Payments enabled payment account, just like the one that we created in the last several slides. And if you already have a business account with PayPal, then great, you're already set. These next few slides won't apply to you. If not, signing up really can help improve your conversions. We've seen that sometimes for some clients, up to 20 to 30% of their donations come through PayPal. That's an awful lot, so it's definitely worth setting up PayPal to capture donations from users who might otherwise not bother. This link will go to where you can create your PayPal business account. Once you go there, you'll land on a page that looks like this. So go ahead and choose business. This is a pretty standard account creation, so I'm not going to spend much time on this. This is really just the first step. Once you've gone there, you'll see a bright yellow banner on your dashboard after you've logged in. And it's going to tell you that you need to add some profile information in order to begin accepting payments. There's also off screen a little arrow where you can click and it'll take you to the next page. So let's click that and start setting up now. From here, I've chosen that I'm a nonprofit and I'm not a registered charity. Obviously, your organization might be a little bit different. Here also, we're going to have to fill in a bunch of know your customer type information in order to create the account with PayPal. That's going to be our legal organization, our EIN or employer identification number, and organizational address to start. So all the stuff that we filled out previously. Next, we're going to select the industry for the business, when it was established, your overall size, website, and then this last part is really important. I've got it highlighted here. This is what's going to appear on payment statements. So again, that statement descriptor that we talked about before. This is worth getting right to avoid chargebacks. As far as the business industry goes, these are actually the same categories that we saw before, and you probably want that civic, fraternal, or social organization, one of those subcategories therein. Next up is the part where you give over the business representative's social security number, date of birth, and home address, just like before. This link here goes to our documentation on setting up PayPal to work within ActionKit so you can start using PayPal on your donation pages. I'll link to this in the description of the video. The slides for this video will also be linked from the description. But once you've gone through there, it's going to walk you through how to find your client ID and your client secret. You're going to need to send those to ActionKit support in order to use PayPal on your donation pages. And the way we ask you to securely share those details with us is by going to ots.actionkit.com. That's for one-time secret. This will help you create a secure one-time secret link that is only usable once. So don't open it before you send it to us. Once you send it to us, we will open it Then the link self-destructs, no one else can see it again, and then we can add those details securely to your ActionKit and then get you fully set up. We'll finalize connecting your PayPal account to ActionKit, and from then on, you can use it in all of your donation pages under PayPal account, under payment options, on the Action Basics screen of all of your donation pages. Now we're going to move on to all of the different features that you can enable in your new payments enabled donation pages. First up is allowing users to choose to cover processing fees associated with your donation. So here in these screenshots, I have a checkbox that reads, "Make my donation go further by covering processing fees." And when a user checks that box, then it will increase their donation in proportion with their chosen amount. So for this user who's donated $5, checking this checkbox will increase it by the amount of our donation fees, which is 3.25%. And so this user will donate an additional 16 cents. It shows it right here in the checkbox, so the user knows exactly how much they're contributing. Let's take a look at how to set this up. On the Action Basics screen of our donation page, first you have to ensure that you're using a payment account like the one that we set up earlier. When you do, you'll have two checkboxes available. The first is Allow Covering Fees, and that will make that checkbox that we saw on the previous slide show up on your donation page to prompt users to cover their fees. This second checkbox for Cover Fees Default, this controls whether the box will be checked by default. Now, we think the language, "make my donation go further by covering processing fees," we think that phrasing is clear and direct, but if you'd like to say this in a different way, you can create a custom page field or a custom template set field called AK Donation Processing Fees Label. And best of all, you don't even need to make any changes to your template sets. You just need to create the field and give it a value. Of course, you'd have to create it on the donation page that you're using this on if it's a custom page field, or on the template set that your page is using if you use a custom template set field. Next up, we've moved the employer and occupation fields to the thank you page to make it even easier to collect your donations and increase those conversions. So if you're required to ask donors for their employer and occupation, you can ensure that you're asking users there. Setting this up is pretty quick and easy. First, you need to make sure that your payment account is requiring compliance fields, just as we have highlighted here. Notice that there's this little checkbox here. If you don't see this little check mark here, but you'd like to, click Toggle Compliance Fields and it will check this little box here. And if you don't like the phrasing that we show, which reads, "Thank you for your generous donation. Before you go, can you please quickly fill out your employer and occupation? We're required to ask for it." If you don't like that phrasing, you can customize it with a custom page field or a custom template set field called AK Employer Occupation Follow-Up Label. You may need to add this to your template set's thanks.html template, though this may already be in your template set. Check your template set to be sure and refer to original if you need to add it to yours. I'll also show you how you can do this later on in the presentation. During this year's 10 features every client should use segment, I suggested varying your ask amounts with the URL parameters amounts, weekly amounts, monthly amounts, and annual amounts. And I'd like to expand on that now to show precisely how you'd go about setting that up. As a reminder, here's a quick look at what that looks like concretely. Here you can see my URL bar has the amounts I want with the numbers separated by commas. When I use these URL parameters, the Make It Monthly checkbox will also be replaced with these buttons for one-time, weekly, monthly, and annually. One-time and monthly will always be options. Weekly and annually will only show if you include them as a URL parameter. And I want to point out that you don't have to limit yourself to whole dollars here. This can be really helpful because now you can show a different set of ask amounts based on the recurring donation period. Because someone who donates monthly will probably donate a lower amount than someone who donates one time or annually. Here's what it looks like for annually, and here's what it looks like when you leave out weekly and annually. So here's what a URL that you could use in your mailings looks like piece by piece. For this base URL, obviously you'll use your ActionKit URL, not example.com. I've used the landing page path snippet here, but if you're not using a landing page in your mailing that goes to your donation page, you'll want to replace this base URL with your donation page. Next up, I use $prefill equals 1 so that when we later on use amount equals 10, it's going to pre-select that $10 option. Then I can use other URL parameters like amounts and weekly amounts and monthly amounts and annual amounts, just the way I like it, to show these specified amounts. Just make sure to remove all of the line breaks because URLs can't have line breaks in them. And if you're looking very closely, you might be wondering why on the last slide I used a question mark before prefill, but I used an ampersand for all the others from amount to amounts, weekly amounts, monthly amounts, and annual amounts. This is not specific to ActionKit. This is actually across the entire web. The first URL parameter for any URL is always prefixed with a question mark, and every URL parameter after that is prefixed with an ampersand. So now that we know what this URL is supposed to look like, we can work backwards to assemble a URL that looks like that. So first we want to determine what numbers we want users to choose from. And we have so many options for this. Maybe you want to use a user's highest previous donation as your basis. Maybe you want to run a report and use the results of that report to determine how much to ask for. Or maybe you have data stored in a custom user field and you're going to use that as your basis. Regardless, once you've figured out how you're sourcing those numbers, you then have to add the URL parameters to the links that you send to your users. At last year's ClientCon, I ran a training on personalizing mailing content. I'm going to link it here, but this is one of the slides from that training. You'll also get the link in the description as well as the link to last year's presentation as well. But this is going to show different snippets and what you would get for a user who had a highest previous contribution of $27. This is how you'd create the buttons that link to that pre-selected amount like $20 or $54. We are going to need to modify this just a little bit in order to use it in our custom amounts flow. But the idea goes like this. First, take the highest previous donation value, or if they haven't made a donation previously, we're going to default to 5. Then we're going to multiply that amount by a range of values. Here I've chosen from half to double that amount. And finally, we're going to round it to a whole number with the float format filter. So this link will let you revisit that training if you missed it last year. Check it out. There's a ton of great content in here and goes into how to do this in way more detail. So since the snippets on the last slide were in a mailing, we can use donations.highestprevious. And so let's just do a quick recap specifically about how to use multiple filters together, like default, multiply, and float format. So here, donations.highestprevious is $27 for this example user. We have a non-zero value for donations.highestprevious, so this default doesn't apply. It's still 27. If we multiply that by 1.5, we get 40.5. But that doesn't look so natural for how much we would like to ask. You don't ask for $40.5, you ask for $40.50, for instance. But let's go ahead and round this to a full number with float format 0, and then we get 41. If you did want to round it to 2 decimal places, you'd use float format 2. And I want to point out why it's so important to use the default filter. In this example, this user doesn't have a highest previous donation. They've never given before. And so that is 0. But there's no problem because we have a default of 5. Then we go through the exact same steps as we saw on the previous slide, and we end up with 8 as our suggestion. If we didn't have the default, well, that would be a problem because we'd be asking for $0 because 0 times any other number is going to be 0. So when we're putting together our URL, we can take this exact same concept and repeat it as many times as we like. The only difference here I've highlighted in orange. This is going to give us a different amount. In this example, from $14 to $41 for a $27 highest previous donation, and we're inserting all of that into the amounts URL parameter. Just don't forget to remove the line breaks when you set this up, and notice that we have commas here. Let's repeat the exact same thing, but for monthly amounts. Here in orange, I've highlighted all of the changes that I've made from the previous slide, right? So these are the only things that are different. We have monthly amounts instead of amounts, and then we've changed what the multiples are. Everything else is exactly the same as the previous slide. Since this is a monthly donation, I did a much smaller multiple. These are not magic numbers. These are just attempts to offer a reasonable set of amounts for a highest previous donation. You should experiment though and find out what works best for you. And let's put all of this together. Obviously, since the amounts took an entire slide and the monthly amounts also took an entire slide, there's no way I'm going to be able to fit both of them on a single slide and have it still be readable. But you can put them together just like this. And again, don't forget to remove the line breaks. Earlier I mentioned that you don't have to use donations.highestprevious. You could just choose which numbers a user sees with a report. So I'm going to go through that now. First, let's create a report. And I'm going to use the user's query type to start us out. For display columns, I'm going to use the user ID. This is really important. You've got to include that. And then next, I'm going to include all of the columns that I want to be able to use in my report. So that's going to be the amount of the user's first one-time payment ever, or maybe the amount of their most recent one-time payment, or maybe the amount of their highest one-time payment, which is pretty similar to their highest previous donation. And I want to point out that since we're going to use these in a snippet where we're multiplying values, for instance, we need to choose as number from the drop-down menu. Otherwise, it's not going to work the way that we want. In order to use this report as snippets in your mailing, you have to have that first column be the user ID, like we mentioned on the previous slide, and you have to add the merge report category. Of course, you can use whatever filter criteria you like, but before you start using this in your mailing, just make sure that the report results match your expectations. I find that whenever I'm making a report, it's always helpful to spot check with a few users where I can look at their donation history. Now it's really easy to overlook, but you'll add a merge query to your mailing on the compose screen. So you'll click this link highlighted in orange here. And while we're here, I did want to note that merge queries are covered more in depth in a training that I ran at last year's ClientCon, which is linked right here. Once you click that link, it'll be replaced with a type to search box to find which merge query you want to add. And if your merge query isn't showing up, you'll want to confirm that your report has the merge category, and if necessary, refresh the compose screen. Finally, your merge query will now be available from the snippets menu. So the snippets names that are here will reference the column names that you used in your report. These ones were auto-generated, but you can name them yourself on the report screen if you like. So I think that it's really helpful to give these useful names because it may not be super clear what payment highest single cur means, right? It might be better to say, highest one-time payment, or for this one, first one-time payment. Things like that might be a little bit easier to understand. And then similarly, you can use custom user fields as the basis for your snippet. So let's say I have a custom user field called average donation in 2026. Of course, you probably won't have this custom user field in your ActionKit because custom user fields are custom. They're up to you to create them and to decide what data is important to you, what data you want to keep up to date. For sake of time, let's say that we've created this field and added values to all of my users in advance. But if you want a refresher on how to do this, go ahead and check out my custom user fields training from last year, and I'll link to it in the description of this video. Now I can use this custom user field in my snippet, just like all the others. So let's do a quick recap. These are the 3 base snippet examples that we saw from before. There's no one perfect or best answer here. You have a lot of different ways that you could approach this problem. It's actually one of the things that I love about ActionKit is it's so flexible. So whether you're using the donations.highestprevious snippet, or maybe you're using a merge query to get report results and use that to customize your mailing content, or using custom user fields, which maybe you have them updated by user updater, or maybe you uploaded some data into that custom user field. However you get data into that field, you can use it. But in all of the previous examples where I was using donations.highestprevious, you could swap those out with any of these, provided you go through the other steps as well. So by now, you're probably seeing the potential of providing custom, personalized ask amounts to your users. But I do want to caution that none of the multipliers, none of the methods here that I've mentioned, none of that's magic. You know your list, you know your users better than I do. This is general how-to advice, so please be sure to double check with lots of previews, lots of proofs, that everything looks the way that you expect and that the amounts that are generated look reasonable to you and your users. And a couple of quick notes about the custom amounts. Don't confuse amount singular with amounts plural. Amount singular is that pre-filled amount, and you have to use pre-fill is equal to 1. Amounts plural is the options that are shown. Amounts plural is going to replace what you set on the edit content screen of your donation page. And if you don't need weekly or annual amounts, no problem. Don't include them, they won't show up. And you can include as many amount options as you like. Now we're going to pivot a little bit from custom amounts and talk about how to track this source of donations. You can, of course, use the source URL parameter just like you're used to for every other ActionKit page. But if you're accustomed to using refcode or refcode2 from ActBlue, no problem, because we'll handle those too, and we'll store one of those as the source. So of course you can use source to track your sources. You can still do that. We will use refcode as the canonical source if it's present, even if you also have the source parameter. But we will happily accept refcode2 as the source if you don't give us refcode. And if you have both refcode and refcode2, we will prefer refcode as the source. So in all 4 of these examples, the source gets saved as ClientCon. Now, since our donation pages are so optimized for conversions, we're going to choose the best layout or best flow that a user will see when they land on the donation page based on these criteria. So is our user recognized by our upstream provider Stripe? Do they have an account with Stripe? And can we pre-fill any of that user's data into Stripe? So we're going to make decisions based on these questions and then show the user the most optimized flow. But if you wanted to control which flow a user sees, you can do it. This is the default flow, which is also the flow that will show if a user is not already logged into Stripe. You can use the flow equals default URL parameter to tell ActionKit to always use this flow. Step 1 is very similar to default, except you also get these little step indicators up top right away. You'll also get those in the default flow as well, but not until you've advanced to step 2. So you'll use the step 1 flow URL parameter to tell ActionKit that you always want this flow. And then the all fields flow, this is for users who are logged in with Stripe and will often have all of their details pre-filled. If you want to use this to always show all of the fields all at once, then you can tell ActionKit to use this flow with the flow equals all fields URL parameter. So if you want to A/B test your flows yourself, you can control which flow a user will see by including that flow URL parameter in all of your links. Or you can just leave it out and we'll show you what we think is the best flow for each user. Either way, you'll know which flow a user saw when they make a donation if you check the page flow scene custom action field. We actually have a lot of metadata that we store on your users and what options that they saw in custom action fields saved on their actions that they take when they make a donation. So check those out too. That's a really great place to see things like what amounts did they see, things like that. Next up, we are releasing PayPal one-click, and this is really exciting because you can give users a link that will process a PayPal donation in, well, almost a single click. Very, very few clicks. First, to be eligible, the user has to have a PayPal account. If a user has made a PayPal donation on ActionKit or ActBlue previously, we will make a note of it in the AK Payments has PayPal custom user field, which is shown here. Users who don't have this field, well, they might still have a PayPal account anyways, but we don't know about it. We also recently added a modal window to the thanks screen for PayPal donations, so a user can enter in any info that we weren't able to collect when they made their PayPal donation. And we try to pre-fill as much of this as we can. Targeting to your users who could make a PayPal one-click donation is quick and easy. In your mailings targeting, choose the built-in custom user field. AK Payments has PayPal and the value of 1. This will target your mailing to everyone who's eligible for PayPal one-click. And here I have a happy little fundraising email with some nice donation buttons that have PayPal one-click links set up. And I'll show you how to make these URLs in a few slides. When a user clicks on one of these buttons, they'll see your styling and branding on your page and this brief little message just before being redirected to PayPal. And if they're not logged in on this device, they'll need to log in first. If they are logged in, great, they'll be taken to the checkout screen. So let's look at that. Now they can choose how they'd like to pay. Once they choose their payment method, they'll click this pay button and the donation will be captured and they'll be returned to the redirect URL that you have configured for after a user completes the action. That's typically your thank you page. And now that the donation has been completed, here's that thank you screen where the user will be asked for their employer and occupation. So let's build a PayPal one-click URL that you can use in your mailings. This should look pretty similar to before. Here's the minimum URL parameters that you'll need to successfully make a PayPal one-click link. First, we always use prefill equals 1, and you have to pre-select the amount that you want users to donate in the link. Finally, you'll include the PayPal one-click equals 1 URL parameter. That's all. This is the minimum URL parameters that you need to use in order to create your one-click URL. You can, of course, include other URL parameters like amounts or monthly amounts, source, and on and on and on, just like usual. Just don't forget to remove the line breaks from your URL. Here's an even better version of this last slide with a snippet to conditionally add in the PayPal one-click URL parameter based on whether this user has a PayPal account or not. So if user.customfields.akpayments.has PayPal, and if so, then we're going to include that PayPal one-click equals 1, and then we have an endif. Just keep in mind when you're sending users a one-click link, it's a good idea to let them know that the link will go directly to PayPal in order for them to complete their donation. And you can do that with the same snippet that you see here. Now you might be wondering, but Shannon, what happens if someone forwards their email that has a PayPal one-click link to one of their frenemies? So we actually handle this a couple of different ways. If a user has already made a successful donation on this page, whether that's a one-click donation or a regular donation, then this user is no longer eligible for one-click on this page. So the next person who clicks on that link, maybe that's from a forward, they're not going to be redirected to PayPal. They'll be sent to the donation page as a fallback. Or let's say the user clicks on that link, but they bail. The next person who clicks on that link, maybe them, maybe someone that they forwarded it to, that person will be ineligible for one click on this page, and then they will be redirected to the donation page as a fallback. So for any reason, right, if there's any ineligibility for one click on this page, we fall back to the donation page, whether that's the AKID was invalid, the amount was invalid, the user has made a donation, or they bailed on the screen, whatever happens, even if they forward it immediately to a friend who doesn't know their PayPal login, they won't be able to log in, no problem. We always fall back to that donation page. So bottom line, we handle this really, really carefully, and we always ensure there's a seamless fallback to that donation page if we can't process a PayPal one-click donation for any reason, right? So this is really, really important. You can always feel safe knowing that there's going to be that safety. But because we will redirect you back to the regular donation page, this is also why I like to suggest using URL parameters like amounts and pre-fill in your one-click links, just so that everything is configured exactly the way you want if a user does land on the fallback. Next up, I want to talk about mobile wallets. And this refers to third-party processors like Apple Pay and Google Pay. These are enabled on your payments pages by default. There's nothing you need to do in order to use these right now to collect your donations. It's all set up for you. Just keep in mind that the buttons may only show on compatible devices. For example, if you are on an Android phone, you won't see Apple Pay. And if you want to disable Express Checkout to not show Apple Pay, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, you can set the Disable Express Checkout custom page field, set that equal to 1. Now, like I mentioned on the last slide, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, these all have their own set of requirements for when they'll be able to successfully process a donation. And these buttons won't show if they can't process. And best of all, you don't have to do anything to show or hide these buttons. It's going to happen automatically based on which device and which browser the user is on. So even though you don't have to do anything in order to use Apple Pay, Google Pay, Amazon Pay, maybe you want to hide Amazon Pay on your pages. Or maybe you say, Google Pay isn't really, not a lot of people are using this. I don't want to show it. I think I need more screen real estate, whatever the reason. You can use the Express Checkout Methods custom page field and include only the values that you want to show. So for instance, if you set Express Checkout Methods equal to Google Pay, Apple Pay, then only these two will show and Amazon Pay will be hidden. If you just want to show Apple Pay, you can set Express Checkout Methods equal to Apple Pay. Here is a quick cheat sheet of all of the URL parameters that you have available to you. We've covered all of these before, so I'm not going to spend much time on these except to say, in the past, if you wanted to pre-select an amount that was different than the amounts that you had pre-configured on the edit content screen of your mailing or of your page, you had to use the amount other URL parameter. You don't have to do that anymore. We made amount handle both of those cases. Now you can just use amount and forget about amount other. That's really great. But amount is what pre-selects what amount button is pre-selected when you're using pre-fill equals 1. Amounts plural is what amounts should appear. Weekly amounts, monthly amounts, annual amounts, that's also what amounts appear for that recurring period. Speaking of pre-fill equal to 1 is almost always what you want. Pre-fill equal to 0 and NR equals 1. These are less commonly used since they prevent pre-fill and they make your users type in more information, but I did want to point out how they work. For donation type, if you want to pre-fill a recurring monthly donation, you'll want to set this to recurring. And you can choose which flow a user is going to see, whether that's default, step 1, or all fields. Or if you leave it blank, we'll choose the optimized flow for that user. Source, ref code, and ref2 all refer to the source. Where did this donation come from? And then PayPal one-click is self-explanatory. It's going to attempt a one-click donation via PayPal. Next up are our reporting tools. I'm going to show the reports that are available from the reconciliation, balance, and payments list links here. But of course, you can also create your own reports via the reports tab if you like. Remember that these donations that are made are just like any other donation in ActionKit. So you have the same reporting tools available to you. These ones are just special to the payment system. So let's look at the reconciliation report first. This is really helpful to reconcile payouts against your bank statement. So first, let's set the date range. Here's the balance summary that we'll show. This is, of course, just test data for my test account. Scrolling down a bit, you can get itemized reports of the payout reconciliation and the ending balance. And you can download these itemized reports here. Let's look at the balance report next. This is helpful to see how your balance has changed and looks pretty similar to the reconciliation report. Again, we're going to set the date range, and in this case, this looks basically the same as a few slides ago. This has charges, refunds, and payouts, and so on, broken out into their own charts as well. And finally, the payments list report allows you to see all of the payments associated with this time period. Now, this next section is how to make these pages pop with your styling and branding. This section here is going to cover making some template set edits. So this will require a little bit of HTML familiarity. No problem if this isn't your forte, because ActionKit staff are here to help. For clients who are interested in A/B testing ActionKit's new donation pages against another payment processor, we are offering to make the necessary template set edits for you. And we'll even clone the design of one of your other pages. This link here goes to a training that Simon ran at last year's ClientCon on how to do template set edits. And this can help if you decide that you'd like to tackle this on your own. So if you want your page to look a little something like this, we'll take care of that for you. Here's another example, side by side with its ActBlue counterpart. So Indivisible had an existing page in ActBlue, and so we recreated their exact design as they had it on this page, so that when they sent their test to supporters, the two pages would look the same. It would be an apples to apples comparison. And again, we're offering to do this for any ActionKit client who commits to A/B testing a new payments donation page against their current payment processor. So keep that in mind throughout the next dozen or so slides. And if you find yourself thinking, geez, this seems really complicated, I don't want to deal with all of that, no worries, we'll handle it. So this part is a little bit abstract, but I think it's important to understand precisely how you have control over your styling and branding. When a user goes to your page, ActionKit is going to run the code that lives in your template set, and we do that to determine your page's layout, styling, and branding that the user sees in their browser. So for example, if you have a survey page that you send your users to, that page is going to use survey.html inside your template set. And survey.html also includes wrapper.html. So if we add some code to a template like survey.html, we will change the layout and styling and branding and all of that we see on survey pages. Or by making a change to wrapper.html, we can change the layout and styling and branding for every page type all at once. Here's an example of how template sets, so here the original template set, can add functionality to their pages, here survey.html, with custom page fields, here the featured image. Now, you'll have this in your original template set and probably in any of your other template sets that are made from original. So we can see here in lines 22 to 24, here's a snippet that checks for whether this page has the custom field for featured image, and if so, it adds it to the layout in line 23. Now this is the overall process of making template set changes and how they interact with one another. You won't need to do this for a featured image on a page. That's going to come built in and standard with ActionKit. But this is how it was done. And this can be really helpful to understand how you can set this up for some other custom page field or template set combo. So these first two steps you only ever have to do once, or at least once per template set. And then each time you want to use this custom field on a page, you have to add it to the page. So you create your custom page field, you add that custom page field to your template set, and then each page you want to create a new featured image. So when we added payments pages, we used some custom page fields to add extra functionality to those pages. These are payments CSS, payments script, and thank you script. These may not exist in your ActionKit yet. You may need to create them if they don't exist already. Payments CSS is for CSS that gets applied to your payments pages. That's cascading style sheets. Payments script is for JavaScript that gets applied to your payments pages. And thank you script is for JavaScript that gets applied to your payments thank you pages. In the next few slides, we'll show you how to create them if you don't have these set up already. And this link here goes to a blog post on creating custom page fields and how to apply them to your template sets also. I'll make sure that this is included in the description of the video. So here's the settings that I used in my ActionKit to create this field. For the display name and the name, I used payments CSS. You can use whatever display name you like, but this name has to match exactly. Personally, I would not make this always show or required since not every page type uses this. And for the description, I wrote CSS that will be applied to payments-enabled donation pages include a style tag to ensure that styles get applied correctly. Next, set the field type to text, leave everything else blank, and click Save. This field is pretty similar. For the display name and the name, I used payments script. Again, use whatever display name you like, but the name has to match this exactly. Again, don't make it always show, don't make it required. And for the description, I wrote JavaScript that will be applied to payments-enabled donation pages include a script tag to ensure that code is executed correctly. Here also you have to set the field type to text, and leave everything else blank. Then click Save. Now I'm on to the settings that I used in my ActionKit to create the thank you script field. For the display name and the name, this is going to look familiar. I'm using thank you script. Use whatever display name you like, but the name has to be exact. Again, don't make it always show, don't make it required. And for the description, I used this helpful note: JavaScript that will be applied to payments-enabled donation pages include a script tag in order to ensure that code is executed correctly. Here also, set this field type to text, leave everything else blank, click Save. Remember, creating the custom page fields, that's only the first step. These custom page fields don't do anything on their own. They need to be added to your template sets in order to have the ability to function, and later on you'll need to add them to your page as well. So how do you know where to place the custom page fields in the template sets though? If we look at the original template set, this is going to be a really good place to start because we've added the exact code that's necessary for these fields. And these 3 files within the original template set, this is where we'll look. Now, you may already have the necessary code, even if you've never heard of these fields or edited a template set yourself. And that's because when we release a new feature or a bug fix to a template set, we will try to apply those template set changes to all of your template sets. However, sometimes we aren't able to. For instance, if you've heavily customized your template sets, we may not automatically be able to apply the changes. Or if you're using the GitHub integration, then that's really helpful to have version control over your template sets. But we can try to apply the changes, but they're going to be automatically dropped the next time you push a change. So if you're using the GitHub integration, you'll need to make those changes yourself. So how do we check to see whether we need to make changes? I like to open up 2 tabs, one with your template set and the other with original. Go to Pages, the Pages tab, go to Appearance, and then Template Sets. Having some skills in HTML and snippets is going to be very useful. And as always, if you're making any changes at all to your live templates, be sure to preview to make sure that your changes don't break your live pages. With both template sets open, let's load the same template in each. Here I'm going to use the type to search feature to find the templates that we need to check in order to see whether the changes have been correctly applied. And you'll need to do this in both of your tabs. Here's the code in the original template set for thanks.html. It's not important to be able to read the code on the slide. This isn't even the right section. I just want to show what this looks like for now. If you're viewing the code in code mode, you'll see that everything's been highlighted. It has some color coding. That's really nice. And there's line numbers on the left-hand side. You can scroll down a little bit, or you can search for Payments CSS. So here in my original thanks.html, I can see that there's a few places where I'm including the page or template set custom fields .payments CSS, as well as thank you script. Depending on how much you've customized your template set, your code may look very different. And because I don't know all of the precise ways that you've customized your template sets, I can't give a one-size-fits-all suggestion on where you're going to put this code. Now, we're going to make our best effort to apply the changes that we made to the original template set to your template sets as well, so that you get all of the latest updates, bug fixes, and new features. However, it's always a good idea to double check that every change got applied, especially if you've customized your template sets a lot, and always if you're using our GitHub implementation. And remember, even if it looks like those changes are there, if you haven't brought those into your repository, they're going to go away the next time you push. So we publish all of the changes that we make to our template set in order to make it a lot easier on you. But of course, if you've made major changes to your template set, you're going to need to copy these changes to a different place in your HTML. And in case you're wondering why I'm adding the same code here in two different places, well, we'd actually need to look at more lines of code in order to get the full context of why we're putting this code here. That wouldn't really neatly fit on the slide. But again, this is less important that I'm showing you the exact code that you're looking for, and it's more important to me that I'm showing you how to find the code. So how do you find it? If you go to this link, which will also be in the description, this will include all of the changes that we've made in our template sets. And if you've been looking super duper closely, you might be wondering, Shannon, I don't think I've seen page or template set custom fields before. And that's right, it's pretty new. We added it recently because we wanted a quick way to say, if there's a custom page field with this name, let's use that. But if there's not a custom page field with this name, let's check to see if there's a custom template set field with this name. And if so, let's use that instead. So if you have both, the custom page field takes priority. That makes sense because a custom page field is way more specific than a custom template set field, which could apply to lots of pages. So this structure lets you make changes that will apply to every page that uses a template set, or get really specific and make changes that will only apply to a single page. And I think this kind of setup is really amazing when you're doing testing. On the subject of custom template set fields, if you're wondering where to set those up, on the template set screen, you'll go to Settings, and notice that the original template set doesn't have this. This is where you can set the name, description, language, and custom template set fields, and even set up the GitHub connection that we discussed previously. So let's expand the custom template set fields here. Custom template set fields have historically been used to allow you to customize the styling of your template sets more easily, and this allows you to create more reusable template sets. So you'd configure the colors of your buttons here, say, rather than directly in your template set's CSS. You can also add new custom template set fields here, or if you go to the Pages tab, go to Appearance, and then go to Template Set Fields. You can also do that there. Something that I used to do all the time back when I was a client, and I still do all the time as staff, especially on support, is to preview what a page would look like if it were using the original template set. And we're going to use the URL parameter template set equals original and add that to your URL. And it's really important not to confuse this with preview mode for your template sets. Preview mode allows you to preview what a set of changes would look like before you publish your template set. Compare that to this URL parameter, which lets you see things like, oh, how does the fields payment CSS and thank you script, how are these implemented in the original template set? How can I apply that to mine? And remember, if you are interested in running an A/B test to see how effective ActionKit's new pages can be for your fundraising program, reach out to us on support because we'd be happy to get you set up so that you can run your first test. We'll configure all of these custom fields and pages so you don't have to worry about it. We'll even make a pixel perfect copy of one of your pages in another system, like ActBlue for example, so that you can be confident that your A/B test is comparing apples to apples. So here's this cheat sheet for custom page fields. This is featured image will let you show this image on any page. It's not just for donation pages. Contribution rules will show these specific rules before the form. This can be helpful if you want to say, oh, these are the rules for contributing. You have to live in the United States, for instance. Express checkout methods let you choose which express checkout methods you want to show. Like maybe I don't want to show Amazon Pay. You can do that. Disable Express Checkout will disable all of Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Amazon Pay. Payments CSS will allow you to apply custom CSS to your pages. Payments Script will apply custom JavaScript to your pages. And custom thank you script will apply custom JavaScript to those thank you pages. These custom page fields all involve the Save Payment Method checkbox. So do we show it? Can we customize the text? Let's customize the disclaimer text that gets shown. And should we have this box checked by default? We didn't spend much time on the Save Payment Method checkbox, but if you were paying super duper close attention during the should we cover fees, you'll also have seen that. And then there's the AK donation processing fees label, which lets you customize whether the user would like to cover processing fees. And you can also customize the text that asks for a user's employer and occupation on the thank you screen. These custom fields can be used with either a custom page field or a template set field. That's going to be contribution rules, payment CSS, payment script, thank you script, the AK donation processing fees label, and AK employer occupation follow-up label. All of these, if you have a custom page field, that will take precedent over an existing custom template set field. Our final section is a sneak peek of what's on the roadmap, where you can see what we've been working on and what will be coming out very soon. This little checkbox that you see in this screenshot will allow us to save a user's payment method with ActionKit, which is going to make this user eligible for one-click donations, not through PayPal. So this is going to be really useful. You can also customize this language with the field that we saw earlier here. All of these custom page fields refer to this payment method checkbox. So here's how the one-click feature works. When a user donates on a payments-enabled donation page and they opt into saving their payment method, that user becomes eligible for our one-click donations. If a one-click donation can't be processed for any reason, the user will be seamlessly redirected to the donation page, just like with PayPal one-click as well. We will also prefer our one-click over PayPal one-click, but we do have a way to try both before falling back to the donation page. Here we have another feature in the works that is recurring upsell. So this is being able to ask users who donate one time to convert their donation into a recurring donation so that your organization will have more dedicated and predictable funding. This is still in the works, so if you have strong opinions about what this should look like, go ahead and open up a support ticket and let us know. Remarketing mailings are another feature we're working on. You can of course do this now with a recurring mailing, but we'd like to make it easier for you. This is when you click through a mailing, but you don't actually complete the donation. So in the corporate world, this is like if you abandon your cart, but the store emails you to remind you to finish the checkout process. So we're planning on a feature to make this even easier than it is now, and if you have suggestions on what this should look like to make it the most useful to you, let us know. Finally, thank you all so much. This is a link to the slides, and I'll include links in the description for every video from this year's ClientCon. Thanks, everyone.